De perfect neighborhood. Maplewood Heights looked like a picture from a real estate brochure. Neatly painted houses, perfectly trimmed hedges, and matching mailboxes lined the streets. To outsiders, it was a dream community, but to those who lived there, the rules came with chains. And holding those chains tighter than anyone else was Karen Whitmore, the HOA president. Jonathan Miller had moved in for peace and quiet. A decorated veteran turned EMT, he wanted a slower life with Max, his retired K-9 partner. The two had been through battles most people couldn't imagine, and now they wanted rest. Jonathan kept his yard neat, paid his dues, and minded his business. But in Maplewood Heights, minding your business didn't always keep trouble away. Karen had built a reputation for control. She fined neighbors for minor weeds, dictated the acceptable shade of curtains, and even warned families about the noise of children playing. Some avoided her, others feared her, but Jonathan mostly ignored her, until her focus landed squarely on him. It started with small confrontations, Karen criticizing his truck, measuring his grass with a ruler, hinting that Max might be too large for a residential neighborhood. Jonathan brushed it off, but Max didn't. The dog growled low every time Karen came near, sensing what Jonathan couldn't yet see. This was more than rule enforcement. This was personal. De fast confrontation. One bright Saturday morning, Jonathan was repairing a loose step on his porch when Karen appeared, clipboard in hand. "Your mailbox is off regulation color," she announced without greeting. Jonathan wiped the sweat from his brow. "It's the same black as everyone else's, Karen." Her lips curled. "Not quite. Yours is glossy. De whose stage match. You'll have to replace it." Max let out a deep rumble from inside the house, watching her through the glass door. Karen flinched, glaring at the dog. "Control your animal," she snapped. Jonathan's jaw tightened. "He's fine. He doesn't like uninvited guests, that's all." Karen's eyes narrowed, but she scribbled something on her clipboard and marched away. Jonathan thought it was over. He was wrong. Over the next few weeks, letters piled up, warnings about his driveway, about a non-compliant trash bin, even about Max's presence on the porch. Each one was signed by Karen. Neighbors whispered their sympathy but did nothing. "She'll get bored and move on," one said. But Karen wasn't bored, she was obsessed. Jonathan reminded himself to stay calm. After all, he had survived worse than an HOA president with too much free time. But Max's instincts told another story. The dog paced more at night, sleeping lightly, ears twitching at the smallest sounds. Something was coming, and Max knew it. The break-in. It happened on a night when Jonathan was called for an overnight EMT shift. The streets were quiet, rain beginning to fall, and Karen saw her chance. She had convinced herself Jonathan was hiding violations inside, perhaps unauthorized renovations, maybe even something she could use to drive him out. With a flashlight in hand, she slipped into Jonathan's backyard, her shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth. The sliding glass door resisted at first, but after a few tugs, it gave way. Karen smiled triumphantly. She had won, she was inside. But she wasn't alone. From the hallway, two glowing eyes caught the beam of her flashlight. Max rose slowly, muscles taut, ears forward. He didn't bark, he didn't need to. The growl that rolled from his chest was enough to freeze Karen mid-step. Good boy. Jonathan had always trained him to wait, to watch, to protect until commanded otherwise. Tonight, Jonathan wasn't there, but Max remembered his duty. Every time Karen moved, Max mirrored her, cutting off escape routes. Her arrogance began to crumble. The house felt smaller with every step she took, the dog's presence filling every corner. "Nice doggy," she whispered, voice shaking. Max's growl deepened, his teeth flashing in the dim light. For the first time in her reign as HOA president, Karen wasn't in control. She was trapped. De discovery. Jonathan returned home at dawn, his uniform damp from the night's rain. Max greeted him at the door, calm but alert. Something was off. The sliding door bore scratches. A lamp was tipped over. Jonathan's training kicked in. Someone had been here. He moved cautiously through the living room, and then he saw her. Karen Whitmore, the mighty HOA president, crouched behind the couch, clutching her flashlight like a lifeline. Max stood guard inches away, eyes locked on her every movement. Jonathan's heart pounded, but his voice stayed steady. "What are you doing in my house, Karen?" She straightened, trying to regain her composure. I was inspecting for violations. You left your door unlocked, and I had reason to believe." Jonathan held up his phone, recording every word. "You broke in. You trespassed. And you scared my dog. That's not inspection, that's a crime." Karen's face pallid. "If you report this, I'll—" "You'll what?" Jonathan cutin. "Fine me for my mailbox. You'll be lost, Karen. And now, everyone will know it." For the first time, Karen had no clipboard to hide behind, no rules to twist. She had been caught, and Jonathan had all the evidence he needed. De consequences. The HOA meeting that week was unlike any before. The room buzzed with tension as neighbors gathered, curious about the whispers of Karen's downfall. Jonathan stood calmly at the front, Max resting at his side. He played the recording, Karen's voice admitting her break-in, her flimsy excuses. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Neighbors who had suffered under her rule finally spoke up, sharing their own stories of harassment. The board, embarrassed and cornered, had no choice. Karen was stripped of her position, fined, and formally censured for her actions. Her face burned red as she tried to protest, but the tide had turned. For once, the community saw her clearly, not as a protector of order, but as a bully undone by her own obsession. Jonathan didn't gloat. He simply patted Max's head, grateful for the loyalty of a partner who had never failed him. Maplewood Heights was still a place of matching fences and manicured lawns, but something had changed. The fear Karen had instilled was gone, replaced by relief, and respect for the man and his dog who had stood against her. As Jonathan walked home with Max trotting proudly by his side, he couldn't help but wonder, was this truly the end of Karen's reign, or just the beginning of another scheme? The story of Maplewood Heights wasn't finished, but one thing was certain. Karen had underestimated the wrong neighbor, and Max had proven once again that loyalty outlasts fear.